Reclaim your mornings with the Sway, the original heatless hair curling ribbon from Maine Label Hair Co. As busy moms and entrepreneurs who each run their own businesses, Molly, a fashion designer, and Misty, a hairstylist and salon owner, wanted to find an easy way to get beautiful, healthy curls without spending half the morning in front of a mirror. Together, they created the Sway. The Sway curls without heat, so it won't damage your hair. It's soft and luxurious and comfortable to sleep in, so you can wear it overnight and wake up looking glam. Made in the USA from plush cotton velour or cruelty-free piece silk. It's also a super cute accessory that's available in lots of beautiful colors, so you can put it in and wear it out. I wear this all the time and I wear it out all the time and it never fails. I always get a compliment on one, how cute it looks, and two, people cannot believe that I'm actually curling my hair. It's one of my favorites. I absolutely love it. No matter what type of hair you have, the Sway can help you achieve beautiful, healthy curls with minimal effort, so you can spend more time doing what you love with whom you love. The Sway makes a great gift, and Molly and Misty want to offer More Than Your Age listeners a chance to get a great deal. Go to mainelabelhairco.com, that's M-A-N-E, labelhairco.com to get yours today and use the code More Than Your Age at checkout for 10% off your entire order. With lots of great accessories like scalp massagers, brushes, scrunchies, headbands, and more, it's easy to find a gift or something for yourself. So use code More Than Your Age for 10% off today at mainelabelhairco.com. That's mainelabelhairco.com. Joining me on the More Than Your Age podcast is resilience, adversity, and grief keynote and TEDx speaker and author, Julia Nicholson. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Erica. I am so excited to be here.
Juliet, it is an honor to get to speak with you and have you on the show today. You are such an admirable woman. My husband's sister, my sister-in-law, her husband, so my brother-in-law, his family, his parents saw you speak. I want to say it was late summer, maybe early fall. And when they saw you speak, they knew that one, your message related to what this podcast is all about, just with your life circumstances. And then two, that your book and also what you shared would relate to me, as I have been going through what you call my own myself. And so they just thought that you, in any way, at least your book would be helpful for me, which your book is called Move Forward Stronger. I have absolutely loved it. So I want to say thank you first for just sharing your own personal experiences to provide guidance to help not just me, but I can imagine thousands of other people. So thank you first for that.
Oh, you're welcome. It was, to me, it was an honor, and I was very humbled to be able to write it. So thank you for taking the time to read it, and I'm excited to share whatever I can with you to help you and all your listeners.
Absolutely. Well, as you say in your book, you have had a lot of strikes against you that you have learned to refuse being confined or defined by them. I'd like to start by talking about some of these strikes that you've had against you. Would you mind sharing the story of what happened to you during your spring break year of your freshman year, or during spring break of your freshman year?
Sure. I mean, the irony is that so many of the things that happen in our life, we always think this is not supposed to happen to me, right? But it was my spring break freshman year in college, and my best friends and I went to go to Fort Lauderdale. And at that day and age, Fort Lauderdale was the spring break mecca of the country. And I was living at home at the time, freshman college, going to school at the same time. And my parents somehow didn't see it the same way that I did. When I came home and said, gosh, we're going to go to spring break for Fort Lauderdale for spring break, they were a little apprehensive and said, you know what, gosh, it's dangerous there, bad things happen. Why don't you go see your sister instead? So that's how I wound up in the little town of Stephenville, Texas, instead of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, for my spring break. But I thought it was okay because there's a small college there called Tarleton State. So I thought, oh, it's a target-rich environment. But the second night that I was there, well, that's what's important, right? I mean, at least for me at 18 years old, it's like, okay, are there other people my age that we can go and enjoy and celebrate? And so that's how I wound up there. And the second night I was there, my sister had just started dating a new guy in her life. She had moved about a year earlier, and so I was pretty excited to see her. And that night, we decided to go to a party at a lake with her new boyfriend and his best friend. And about halfway there, it was about 11 o'clock at night, a deserted 2-lane highway in the middle of nowhere, Texas, we were hit head on by a drunk driver going a very high rate of speed. And I took the full brunt of the impact. I was sitting in the front passenger seat, and basically the last thing I remember as I saw the headlights coming at me, and the words that I got out were, "Oh my God," and that was it, and impact. And I was trapped in the car. I was unconscious and critically injured, and everyone else in the car got out okay, but mine wasn't so it wasn't so easy. And so luckily emergency crews literally appeared out of nowhere. And when I say that we were in the middle of nowhere, Texas, I mean that. We have pictures that show there is nothing for miles on either way. And this is before cell phones or cell towers. But fortunately they were able to extract me from the car and basically wound up with significant injuries, a lot of them to my face because I had done a face plant into the dashboard. And my parents got that 2 a.m. call back in St. Louis that no parent ever wants to get. And that message of, there's been an accident, your daughter's critically injured, you need to get here quickly. And I knew my injuries were bad, especially my facial injuries, but I really didn't know how bad until my dad, who's a 20-year Marine Corps veteran, he's done 2 tours in Vietnam, he has a Purple Heart, he has a gold star with a Combat V, and it's the first time I ever saw my dad cry when he walked through that door and took one look at me. And in that split second, I felt like my entire life was ruined. It was over. I didn't understand why me, why this, why now, and I sunk into this really dark, deep hole. And by the time I was able to be released from the hospital, I was just getting worse and worse mentally and emotionally. And the emergency room and the doctors did a really good job of saving my life. But what I learned out of that was that the physical injuries heal much faster than you can process the mental and emotional effects of an accident like that and then the ramifications of it.
You, when you experienced the accident and you saw your dad, first time you saw your dad and he started crying, and you realized, okay, this is a little bit more than what I'm thinking. Do you kind of remember how did you process that of seeing your dad? Kind of what were the first initial thoughts in that moment? Do you remember?
Yeah, actually I do. And the interesting thing is there's a lot that I don't remember, but the things that I do remember are very strong and very vivid. And that feeling of seeing my dad, seeing him cry, my first sensation was, how can I help him? Because it was so devastating. I mean, my dad was injured in Vietnam to the point where we didn't think we would ever see him again. And when I saw him break down and cry, my first instinct was him and how he's feeling, what I can do. And then when he came toward me, it hit me of how bad I must be. And the hospital did a really good job of keeping reflective surfaces away from me, which was a really good idea, I think. But then when I started to get a sense of, if my own father can't look at me and he has this reaction, all of the sense of, I'm a victim of circumstance, I'm a victim of all of these other people's choices, this is as good as my life is going to get, I will never feel any better, I will never feel any different. And I was still on medication, right, because of pain medication and things like that, but I was still clear-headed enough to be able to recognize, this is bad, my life is over, my life is ruined, and seeing my dad's face just confirmed it. I mean, my dad's a tough Marine, like nothing bothers him. And so it was a total shock, in addition to the shock of the car accident that numbness and shock that was starting to wear off. But seeing his face, it was, he didn't have a poker face. I don't think it was possible.
Did you ever hear, I mean, Because I think about the other people that were in the car accident too, your sister and the boyfriend, and there was one other person, right?
Yes, yes. It's ironic. It's my sister, her boyfriend, which is now her husband of over 40 years, and
Oh,
his best friend. Yes, they wound up getting married. Yes.
wow. Okay. So after that, how did the dynamic of your relationship with your sister and then with him, how did that change or did it change or what was that like?
That's a great question. It really did not change. I think really what happened was it was so much trauma and so much to process without the coping skills and the mechanisms to be able to process the physical and the mental and the emotional of all that impacted me at the same time. And then I am now in a different state. I'm not even close to my home. I'm literally in this place of my life and my care depends upon everyone else serving me. I mean, I couldn't eat, I couldn't talk, I couldn't swallow, I couldn't have any facial expressions, I could do nothing because the injuries primarily that you could see were all from the neck up. And so from the standpoint of my sister and my now brother-in-law and his best friend, they couldn't have been more helpful and more supportive and more accepting of the place I was in physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then when I was able to travel back, my parents took me back to St. Louis, so I really didn't have very much interaction with them. It was all about medical appointments and doctor's appointments, and there's a lot of stories about what happened in that car and even why and what saved my life, in addition to the emergency crew that removed me from the car. But in looking at that, there was really no negative dynamic from us at all. I think they did everything they could. It was pretty clear that his best friend who was driving, it was not his fault at all. There was no alcohol involved. There was no speeding involved. The other driver had been bar hopping the entire afternoon since they figured about 4 o'clock until we got hit at 11 p.m. ish. And she had crossed over the median and there was no place for us to go. There was no even time to hit the brake. So there was not a sense, I never had this sense of it's your fault or anything like that. It was more of a, why did this happen to me? Because the three of them walked out of the car with relatively no injuries. They were able to get out on the driver's side. But the car literally just crushed around me and pinned me, and there was nothing I could do to get out. I couldn't move. I couldn't do anything. And I could hear, once I was able to have a little bit more consciousness, I could hear noises on the side of the road. Wasn't really sure where they were coming from. It was just a general sense of direction. But Erica, I thought I was dead, and I was convinced I was dead. And I remember thinking, this must be what it feels like. It was very calm. It was very peaceful. Ironically, I felt absolutely no pain, no physical pain whatsoever. It was just very calm and peaceful. The pain came later after that shock and numbness started to wear off, but didn't feel anything there. And the relationship with my sister and now brother-in-law was never negatively impacted. I think there was nothing that they could do, and both of them were in the back seat. And I never had that sense of, why not them? It was more focused on, why me? Why this? Why now? I mean, I had so much of my life to look forward to, and now my life is over.
You briefly just shared that there were other factors that contributed to you surviving, and you share this later in your book when you discuss some of the frameworks. And if you share briefly about it, because I think it's fascinating how this seatbelt, but not just the seatbelt, how you couldn't remove it. Just share a little bit about why could you not remove it, what happened there, and there was obviously a purpose for you to continue living.
And actually, Erica, you just hit it right on the head. That purpose for me to continue living. The car, there's about 7 things that had to combine in order for me to survive that car accident. One of them, the guy driving, was 6'5", so very tall. The seats in the car that we were riding in happened to be bucket seats, but tandem. So they moved together. I'm short. I'm 5'2". I would have had that seat as close to the dashboard as I could, because then I could see over the dashboard. But because he was tall, the seats were back. The bucket seats allowed me to turn around to look at my sister and talk to her in the back seat. In 1980, seatbelts were not required in cars. For whatever, through the grace of God, his car had seatbelts. But I put it on as a joke. I had just met him a couple of hours earlier. I was joking around saying, I don't know whether you're a good driver or not. So I put the seatbelt on. And as I'm turning around talking to my sister, it's the shoulder strap is cutting me in the neck while I'm talking. So I tried to unbuckle the seatbelt. It would not unbuckle for anything, no matter how hard I tried. And so I put it behind my back while I was talking to my sister. And what wound up happening was, if in fact that seat belt would have unbuckled, I would have taken it off. And the studies that were done, because it then turned into a big legal issue of who had insurance, and but if that seatbelt would have come unbuckled, I would have gone straight through the windshield. If I had the shoulder strap on, it is possible that where it cut me and the force, it would have snapped my neck. So that seatbelt getting locked was an unbelievable miracle, as well as the nose of the car was the longest, the hood of the car was the longest at that point in time of the cars they were building in history. So I had all of these things going for me to save my life. The irony at the very end of this is my sister knows I'm very sentimental and went to the junkyard, took pictures of the car, and then decided to get that seatbelt because they had cut me out. And the seatbelt was still in the car with the attachment to the car and the buckle still locked in the, whatever you call that, mechanism that holds it in. And so she decided to push the button, the seatbelt came out instantly, and one single penny fell out of the seatbelt lock that had gotten lodged in exactly the right place at exactly the right time that was needed for it to save my life. It is. And you know what, after the car accident, I spent so much time in that victim mentality of, look what happened to me. And when I had that moment shift one morning that makes absolutely no sense, and my thoughts changed from why me to why not me? Why would I have wished this horrible experience and all the aftermath on anyone else? And once I was able to make that shift, and I have no explanation why, it was literally one morning, months later, I started to think about, instead of why me and why this and why now, I started to think about, oh my gosh, look at all the things that happened that combined that are statistically improbable for me to still be here. So my life must have some reason, some purpose. I don't know what it is, but all of a sudden that focus then that shifted to, there must be a reason, there must be a purpose, because look what happened to save me, as opposed to look what happened that almost killed me.
Yeah, that's a good perspective and a huge shift that, like you said, instead of having the victim mentality, which often when difficult and hard things happen, we do have that victim mentality, but if we don't stay there, we move past that. And I love that perspective of why not me? Why would I want it to be somebody else? I think just helps shift and change things tremendously.
I agree. And that victim mentality, we are a victim, but we're a victim of our own thoughts. And when I was able to start letting go of those last two words, to me, look what happened in my life. Look at what happened with this experience. But once I started to drop the words to me, it made me feel better. Things happen to everybody. Things happen in everybody's life. There's just stuff that happens. It just does. And I think for some of us, including me, I started thinking about, well, what did I do wrong? Why am I being punished? I'm not a bad person. I don't deserve this. And I started falling into, there must be some reason why this happened to me. And then I started recognizing, stuff just happens in life. It just does. Some people have a little more stuff that happened in their lives than others, but none of us are immune to it. And that real shift of, I wouldn't want this to happen to anybody else. And then, is there something that I can get from this? My life doesn't have to be ruined. It doesn't have to be over. That's in the future. I can't change what happened in the past, but I can change how I view what happened and then use it to my advantage.
Well, to kind of go back a little bit to after the accident, outside of physical appearances, I know that would have been insanely difficult just to see yourself a completely new light. I'm this different person. And you said you also had later this mental component came of different struggles. What were some of your struggles on what you would do in life? Because you were in college and then that had to stop. Did you think that you would have opportunities to pursue any desirable careers, or where was your head at this time?
No, my head was put me in a cave, leave me in the dark, leave me alone, and just let me die. My life is over. I have nothing to live for. There's nothing that I can contribute. I didn't really have a lot of self-confidence and self-esteem and self-worth at 18 years old anyway. And this just destroyed anything that I would have had because so much of my focus was on physical appearance. Is my hair, is it a good hair day today? Does my purse and my belt and my shoes match? Is some guy looking at me? Did I get asked out on a date? Do my clothes look good, right? Everything was outward physical. And literally what I had wanted to be was a flight attendant. And I would say then one of the worst possible things happened as I'm now able to travel home and I'm walking through the Dallas-Fort Worth airport and people are gasping and pointing at me and I'm trying to hide behind a vase of long-stem red roses that the driver of the car and my sister's boyfriend had given me when I was leaving. And I board the plane and the flight attendant could not be more kind, but when I boarded the plane and sat down, she asked, are you okay? Can I get you anything? And she was trying to make small talk. And she asked me, what did I want to be when I grow up? Well, at that point in time, the word was stewardess. Well, I want to be a stewardess. And bless her heart, she looked at me and she said, oh, sweetie, you know what? With facial scars, you won't be able to be a stewardess. And that was to me the end of the end. And it was, I had this sense of, I don't even know who I am. I can't look at myself in the mirror. Certainly my friends aren't going to be able to. The public can't. So I have nothing left to live for. I have nothing that I can give. I have nothing left to offer. And so no, I literally fell into this dark, deep hole that my life was over and I had nothing left of value. And I isolated myself in my bedroom in my parents' house and wouldn't see anybody, wouldn't talk to anybody, would only go for my doctor's appointments that I needed. And other than that, I had no interest in life, and which is the total opposite. I mean, I have high energy. I'm a very positive, optimistic person. I love to talk to people, love to meet people. I mean, the more excitement, the more adventure, the more the merrier, and went to total asocial inside myself.
After what amount of time was did your physical appearance heal, or did you have to have reconstructive surgery, or what was that like? And then to follow that as well, when were you able to just get out there and find work or do something that made you happy?
So the interesting thing about the whole surgery stuff is the emergency room was able to save my life. But in the haste to save my life, they didn't reconnect all the facial muscle tissue. So when all of the swelling was gone and the healing of all of the open wounds had finished, my providers in St. Louis recognized that it wasn't connected. And so I had two choices. I had to wait and see that maybe the nerves might regenerate themselves. Maybe I would be able to have facial muscle control. But to think about this as an 18, and now I've turned 19 in this window of time, that you have absolutely no ability to smile. You have no ability to enunciate. You have no ability for diction. You have no ability for any type of facial expression, which is what we all read, right? I mean, it's not as much of the words. And so a decision had to be made. Did I want to undergo surgery to open everything back up again, to have it reconnected and not know the outcome, but the probability was higher, or wait and see what would happen? And I literally let my mom make that decision. And I remember saying to her, I am in no condition to make this decision. Please make it for me. And I now recognize what awful position I put my mother in now that I'm a mom with two daughters, to imagine what that must have been like for her to see me from in this entire how many month period of where I was, to know that now this means more surgeries. And the good news is that miraculously the surgery worked. As you can tell, I can now smile and laugh and actually speak, which is there are so many ironies in all of this, right? The ability to speak was taken away from me in that car accident, but then it was given back to me to get to this point to say, your job is to share this message to help other people through your voice, right? So you kind of look at all these and you think, you can't even make this stuff up. When you think your life is over, it's really just a new beginning. But after that, those surgeries, and I healed, that's when I recognized that mental emotional stuff stays with you a really long time. And one of my challenges was that I started to recognize that people expected me to heal faster from the physical, emotional, mental combined. And what I learned was the mental emotional doesn't heal. you process it. You process it in a way that you can live with it going forward in something positive. The physical does heal, that goes away, but the mental emotional doesn't. Something that happened in someone's life will always be with them. And so when about 6 months after the accident, I was trying to please other people's needs for me to get back in the world. And I was literally in that fake it till you make it. And what I recognized for me is that actually made it worse for me. I was trying to make everybody else happy at the same time I was making myself miserable, because I was looking for that attention. I was looking for that validation that I was okay, that I still fit in the world, that somebody might still want me, and had to come to learn that all of that comes from within. When you're looking for it from someone else, the bar always changes, no matter who it is you're looking for it from. And you have to set your own bar. And when am I okay with myself? And that led me into that looking for validation and approval, led me into making another decision that someone should never make when they're dealing with the mental and emotional challenges of inside themselves. Am I okay? Am I good enough? Am I worthy? Do I have any value?
Yeah, and I'm guessing that this decision was when you met your first husband, correct?
Yes, so I wound up eventually going back to college, right? I had to leave that semester. I wound up going back to college, starting again in the fall. And literally the first social event that I went to, this guy started paying attention to me, and my instant thought was, I better grab onto this. This is going to be as good as it gets. This is going to be my one and only chance. And so I did. I did everything I could to make that attention turn into a relationship, that relationship turn into a wedding and a marriage, and tried to hang on to it because I truly believed this was as good as it gets. And unfortunately, my choice was so blinded by the need to be wanted and to be valued and to be worthy and literally have a relationship in my life that I ignored all of the signs that I would later have to acknowledge as abusive.
And the two of you had two beautiful children together. And
yes.
Like you said, you
Yes.
you noticed eventually there were signs of behavior that was abusive. And so life wasn't what you thought it was going to be. What happened at home, and then what was the final straw in order for you to say, enough is enough, I'm out?
Yes. So as I said, trying to do everything I could to make this work, because in my mind, failure in a marriage was just one more proof positive that I'm not worthy, that I'm not deserving, that I don't have anything of value left. And he reinforced that with the emotional abuse of, I'm ugly, I'm worthless, I'm damaged goods, I'll never amount to anything, I'm stupid, I'm no good, right? I mean, he reinforced that and I bought into it. What really happened is after we had our second child, and the abuse had escalated, right? It went from verbal to emotional to mental, and then it started to get physical. And my youngest daughter was a couple months old, and one night, as I laid her down to bed, I heard him coming up the stairs in a very forceful stomp. And as I shut the door and turned around and I looked at him, I saw that same look that I had seen before, that I had no idea why he was now enraged. I had no idea what I'd done, what happened, anything. But my instant sense was, this is not good. I just laid a 3-month-old down. My 3-year-old is sleeping, and I am standing here watching him come at me, literally waiting for him to kill me. And something snapped Erica in that second that, look, you do anything you want to me, treat me any way you want, but those children, never. And something snapped in me, and I literally stood up to him, and I felt like I was 6 feet tall, and I just said, that's it, I've had it. I'll never be in this situation again as long as I live. In the most forceful, but not screaming hysterical, it was firm, it was clear, he knew I meant business. And the unbelievable thing, Erica, that's the first time I had done that in the 5+ years we had been married, and he wilted to the floor like a deflated balloon. And I looked at that and thought, this is what I have been afraid of for years, because I was so afraid that I had no money, I had no job, I had no education, I was convinced I had nothing of value. I felt trapped. I felt trapped in the situation, physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, that I couldn't go anywhere. But when I had fear for my daughters and their safety, everything else changed. And with a vengeance, I told him I would never stand for that again. And I never looked back. That was the night that it ended, that I picked up my 3-month-old and my 3-year-old and walked out the door with the clothes on my back and a car with a car payment. I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no plan. There was nothing other than save them from anything I had experienced and get them out of the situation as fast as I could. And so I literally got in the car and I thought, I guess I need to figure out where I'm going to go. And so I went over to my mom's house and she graciously come in. And so that was where I spent that first 24 hours of, okay, I need to get this settled. But I made that decision was in a split second out of fear for the safety of my daughters.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can imagine that that's terrifying. And like you said, do whatever to me, but do not mess with these two beautiful children. And
that's right.
So you leave that night with just the clothes, like you said, the clothes that you have. You go to your mom's, and you're there for the next 24 hours. So then now what's next? You have to navigate. Now you're a newly single mother. You said that you were in college for a little bit, but you didn't have the college degree. You didn't have the job. Food. Where did you live? Like, how did you know what to do, and what was the next first step to get you to where you needed to be?
The irony of all of this is that, and I know I use that word a lot, right? But being at my mom's house for that 24 hours gave me at least a little bit of a break. I felt like I was at least safe. My daughters were safe. It was the middle of the night. It gave me actually a little bit of a reprieve to be able to think. And I know that sounds odd in the heat of all of this, but literally started to think forward, what could my life be with just them if he is out of it? And one of my first thoughts was, I have to find a job. I have to find a way to support myself. Given his temperament and the manner in which I left, and his family was a very strong Catholic family that nobody gets divorced, everybody, you just stick it out, this is what you do. I already knew that there was not going to be a lot of support or help there. And my first thought was, I guess I need to find a job. The challenge was, I had no idea how hard it was going to be to find a job as a young 20s with 2 children, single. Nobody wants to hire you. They think of you as baby rearing or baby childbearing years, and you have these 2 children, which means you're not going to be at work. You're going to be home with sick kids. And so finding a job was bigger challenge than I thought it was going to be. And I wasn't picky. I just needed something because I literally had no job. And it didn't help that I had no background or education or training in anything to be able to bring valuable skills. I learned later I had a lot more valuable skills than I ever dreamed of, but I wasn't able to see them because I was thinking the outward way, like most of us do. Oh, do you have a college degree, or do you have some type of trade or some type of vocation, or do you have some long history that you've had all of these jobs? And what I've come to learn is those are not the valuable skills that we need for employment. What we need is the resilience. What we need is that determination. What we need is courage. What we need is perseverance. What we need is that strength that comes from the struggle. And the people that don't have struggle don't have any of those like we have. That's what happens when you hit the mat. What did you learn from it that you can bring with you? I didn't know any of that then, so now I'm feeling even worse about myself. I can't find a job. Nobody's going to hire me. I have these 2 children that everybody else sees as baggage, but I think this is my lifeline. My job is to save and provide for them. And literally just trying to get out there, and I found this little accounts payable job not too far away that was a business that the owner was also the CEO and president, and he decided to take a chance on me. And that's where I started. I was an accounts payable clerk, literally making almost nothing and trying to do 2 kids in daycare and a rent payment, and literally trying to just take the steps of, I knew I couldn't do anything if I didn't have a job and I didn't have any money. And my father never graduated from high school. He was an enlisted man in the Marine Corps. My mother was a secretary to a math teacher. So there was no disposable income for them to be able to help. They were really good support for me and encouragement, but they couldn't help financially. And the first thought was, I need money to survive. I need to buy food. I need to find a place to live. I need to make sure that I can pay my bills. And so my little accounts payable job at Sun Carpet in St. Louis, Missouri was where I started, and literally worked there for a couple years. And I set it up so that the child daycare was really close to the business. So I would drop them off. I'd be able to spend about a half hour with them, so it was easy. Then I'd take my lunch hour. I'd go and have lunch with them. Then I'd come back. Then I'd pick them up from daycare, go home. And then what I learned during that job was I got passed over for multiple promotions, but I didn't understand why. I'm a hard worker. I'm dependable. I show up. I learn things. And that's when that naivety actually played a really positive role in my life. I was innocent. I didn't know what I wasn't supposed to do in a corporate world.
And so because you kept getting passed up for these jobs, what did someone eventually tell you? Did you ask? How did you know why you weren't getting these jobs? And then what did you have to do?
Right. Yes. This being naive is actually, I think, a benefit. I had no idea other than, well, this is the president of the company. He owns the company. He must be the one that makes the decisions, even though I know other people are there. I'm going to ask to meet with him. And graciously, he did. He said, sure, I'll meet with you. So I laid out my case in about a minute or two of, I've worked here this long, I've done this. And he said, oh, no, I know who you are. And I said, well, I don't understand. I've been passed over multiple times for this promotion, but I really know I could do that job. I think I'd be really successful. And he looked at me square in the eye and shot me straight and said, I know you can do that job. You could run circles around the people in that job. And I said, well, then I don't understand. It made no sense to me. I was raised with, you work hard, you do your best, and then you get promoted. And he looked at me and he said, no, you could do that job. What's wrong? You don't have a college degree. And I looked at him and I just said, it's just a piece of paper. And I know, I look at that now and I think, oh my gosh, that he even gave me at the time of day. And he said, no, you're absolutely right, but it's a very important piece of paper. And I said, okay, I got to think about this one. And nobody in my family had college degrees. My parents didn't, any of my relatives. The background that I was raised in was hourly work. You go to work from 8 to 5, you get your hour for lunch, you get your 2 weeks of vacation, and that's your life, that's your job. Nobody had college degrees, so college wasn't even discussed. And so I came back the next day and I asked if I could have a few minutes of his time. And after thinking about that night, again, my naivety, I walk in and I say, thank you very much. I've decided I'm going to go to college. Here's my resignation. Didn't think about when he said, well, wait. Are you sure you want to do that? How are you going to support your kids? And then he graciously said, if you want to go to college, you might want to try night school. And if you need to leave early, 15 minutes or something, a few nights a week, let me know. And so that's really his prompting to say, in essence, what I heard was, you're going to be stuck in the job you're in, which is barely making ends meet. And I could tell you the number, but it would be shocking because it doesn't even make sense. And I thought, I'm not going to be able to support my family, my children, and I have no help. And so I decided, all right, I'll go to night school. And I didn't have any money to pay for babysitters, so I wound up bartering childcare with one of their daycare providers. I bartered with her. She watched my 2 daughters on a Tuesday and a Thursday night for 2 hours. And then I watched her little girl on the weekends. And so I didn't have any money, so I bartered. And I bartered for as much as I could, and then did odd side jobs that I could take my daughters with me. So I'd work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, or 8 to 5, and then I would teach gymnastics and dance at a dance academy on the weekends because they could come with me and go for free. And then I worked in a real estate office where I could answer the phone and they could come with me and sit on the floor. So I found ways to be able to work and earn money that I didn't need childcare, or I would barter childcare. And that's where it started to go back to school.
Just even thinking about like having to go through all of that and just you're pivoting, you're having to figure out what can I do where I can bring my kids. Because also I would think, how are you getting a chance to even spend time with your children? But you're finding these jobs or these things to do in order to bring them and have them be a part of your life with you so that you still get to be with them and then take care of what you need to take care of.
Yes, well, and the beauty of all that, and I didn't know it then, but what it did for me is it kept me single-minded focused. I wasn't thinking about all of my friends at this age who are out there going to the clubs every Friday and Saturday night, or going on fun girlfriend weekends, or doing whatever they are doing. They are not home with 2 children trying to make ends meet, adulting at the level that I was. But having them with me in these types of experiences and circumstances kept me single-minded focused of why I made the decision that I did. And so many people didn't understand. They didn't know what was going on, right? The abuse. And they couldn't understand, wait, you have this great job, or you have this great life, you have a stay-at-home mom, you have a house, you have a car, you have vacations, and thought you have no idea. None of that is worth your mental and emotional health or worth endangering your children. And I think the more that we value ourselves and the more worth we attach to ourselves, not in a braggadocious way, but because we were born. What's the statistic? There's 1 in 4 trillion probability that each one of us are here as we are here. It's mind-boggling. When you think about the absolute improbability of that, and you have that single-minded focus of what am I here for? Well, right now, my purpose is them. How do I take care of them? And so to have them with me and to spend that much time with them during the day when I could, that was my fire. That was my life. That was my purpose. That's what kept me going. And that drive to never be in that situation again as long as I live, where I was trapped, where I felt like I couldn't make a different decision. I had to stay here. And what I learned was, no, that's not true. I didn't have to stay there at all. And in fact, Erica, one of the things that I did once, and as I said, I had no money, but I scraped together $24 to get what people call a vanity plate. But for me, it was a sanity plate, because I scraped together that money and I put the words "I've had it" abbreviated on my license plate on my car. And I saw that every single time. And it reinforced, remember why you did it, remember why you did it, remember, because sometimes it's really easy to convince yourself of, oh, it's not so bad, or oh, it wasn't so bad, or oh, I could have made it work. That focus of, no, remember. So yes, that it started, but literally being able to do things that involved my daughter or daughters and brought them with. Not only did it save me money, it was a means to an end, and they had a great time drawing their pictures. I've suffered that mom guilt for a long time about, oh, I wasn't the one there to be home to bake the cookies and to do the homework and all of that. And when I talk with them about it now, because now they're married with their own children, and what they share with me is what they learned, what they saw, what they were able to then realize and process at a whole different age, because they learned to be self-sufficient in addition to helping each other, right? They learned so many different things, and they've said, and I truly believe them, we don't really feel like we missed anything, that I wasn't that stay-at-home mom that I had envisioned, which is what I thought I was going to be. I never ever thought I'd wind up in the career that I had, achieving the success at the levels that I did. That was never in my plan. I was going to be like a June Cleaver. I was going to be a great wife and a great mom. Life had other plans.
Yeah, it sure did. So you eventually attain your bachelor's degree, and then you obtain a master's degree, and then what happened?
Yes,
as far as your career.
Yes. So this is where that upbringing is so important, that we don't realize that the skills that we bring to the table are not just something that you can read our resume. Some of the skills I'm talking about are in addition to that resilience and the perseverance and the determination and the courage, but also the integrity and the ethics and that foundation of, here's the shortcut, here's the short path, but this is the right thing to do. Even if it's not illegal, it's unethical. And so what happened is, when I finished my MBA, I was offered a position to work in the same industry that I'd been consulting in, because I'd worked for a consulting firm, and I had multiple different places that I worked. I worked for a lighting agency, I worked for a carpeting agency, I worked for a law firm, I worked for a staffing company, right? There was no rhyme or reason to my career path, except for I was always trying to learn something more, something different, and add value to it, and bring everything that I could to the table in whatever role I had. And what wound up happening was, I had taken a job with a staffing company, and I was making more money than I had ever thought of, not even close to what I eventually would. But now I could support my daughters and not have to worry about, do I pay the electricity bill first, or do I pay the gas bill first? Or how do I change my direction in my car so I don't use as much gas? I finally got to the point where I didn't have to worry about juggling those monthly things that you can't not pay. And in working for that company, that staffing and training company, there came a point where there was an ethical integrity issue that came up, and I could have retained my position, but I decided that my ethics and integrity aren't for sale, and so I resigned. But I didn't have another job lined up. But I had this trust, this faith, this value, this worthiness that I have something of value, and I know jeopardizing my ethics and integrity is not it. And Erica, you know what that turned out to be? That turned out to be the best move I ever made, because within 2 weeks, I had another job working for the premier consulting firm in the world in the employee benefits field. That employee benefits field now, when you think about it, healthcare, prescription drugs, medical, dental, exploded. And I was right there, purely because I made an ethical integrity decision that my ethics and my integrity aren't for sale. I can't do this. And had that job. That job led me literally to some of the most dynamic boardrooms and CEO positions that I could have ever dreamed of in the world, and consulting as well. So literally leveraging the things that people don't think about that are valuable, right? And for any of your listeners, if they're thinking, oh, I'm too old, oh, it's too late, oh, I don't have, I want to encourage them, start thinking about what you do have. And I guarantee you've had things happen in your life that you've made it through. That's how come you can listen to this podcast. And you made it through because you had courage, you had strength, you had determination, you had perseverance, you had resilience. You had all of these things that don't show up on a resume, but are so valuable. And what I started to learn in the corporate world is those are the things that make a difference, that make you successful. Those are the things that make you valuable. The other things, other people can duplicate. There are many people that have a college degree. There are many people that have an MBA. There are many people that have experience in this industry. But how many of them been on the mat and got back up, learned something from it, used it to their advantage, and leveraged it going forward? And that also includes empathy and understanding and compassion. I mean, I was able to be in the career that I was, to have the success I did, purely because of the experiences that I had in my life and what I learned from them and applied it. Not necessarily because of my education. That maybe opened the door. That maybe gave me an entree. But it wasn't the determining factor that made me successful.
Oh, man. Julia, that's so good. So good. Thank you. You're just full of so much wisdom. I love it. I love it. Well, I want to kind of jump to a season in your life that was another challenge of yours as well. You eventually met and fell in love with Keith, and
Yes.
life was great until he had a terrible accident and became paralyzed from the waist down, and you both had to adjust, and then the unimaginable happened. Now, having gone through multiple heartaches and disappointments, how was this one so much different?
It was different in multiple ways. First of all, the only thing that prepares you to go through a trauma and a tragedy like I experienced with the death of my spouse are other challenges, failures, setbacks that you learn and grow from. And I truly believe that experiencing, as you said, what I call it's, these things that happen that we didn't want to happen, some unwanted change or loss or failure, setback, all of those, I really believe, kind of uniquely prepared me to the extent you could be to face what I really believe has been the greatest challenge, and that is the death of my husband. And drawing on what I learned before, that I have been in these situations where I felt like I didn't want to live anymore, that I had nothing of value, that I didn't fit in the world anymore, that I didn't have anything to offer. And after the shock and the numbness of his death wore off, to be able then to draw on that. I've been in this dark hole before, and I've gotten out of it. And can I use the same skills? Can I use the same things that I learned to get out of this hole as well? And from that standpoint, it was more difficult, I think, for multiple reasons. One is totally unexpected, not from the standpoint that the accident was expected or abuse was expected, but because my husband took his own life, totally unexpected because of the life we were living. We literally had this beautiful family. He had two children. I had two. We had great careers. We had a wonderful future. We were so equally yoked and so compatible, and literally believed it was our turn for a happily ever after, that it was finally our turn. Now I'm at this stage of life. So now I'm in my 40s. And there was no thought that it could end that way, not even remotely possible. And I think just the shock of him taking his own life, and literally no warning, no preparation, and I know there's a lot out there about suicide prevention, and here are the signs, and I'm here to say that's not always the case. And for anybody that has experienced that, I think it's so important to understand there are circumstances and situations where there are no signs and there is no possible prevention. And for me, it took me a long time, and it was harder because I kept hearing all of this prevention stuff. So now I felt this guilt and this blame and this shame that I should have been able to do something about it. Me, with everything I've been through and everything I've experienced, I should have been able to do something about it. And what I finally came to understand and learn is that there is no possibility to ever give another person the will to live. You can't. It's not possible. You can be there for them. You can support them. You can talk to them. You can encourage them. You can do lots of things, but you cannot give another person the will to live. And if that's the choice they are making with the gift of life that they've been given, it's their choice to make. Doesn't mean I have to like it. Doesn't mean I have to agree with it. But it does mean I only have two choices. I can learn to live with it and move forward, or I can learn to live in it and destroy the rest of my life, whatever it is that I have left.
Yeah, and it's kind of one of those things that you've already talked about. Just you could fall to this victim mentality of like, what could I have done? What did I not do? And I would imagine that was probably a portion of it. Of just, I mean, like you said, it was shock. You did not see this coming at all, and so what are you doing with that? And I know that wasn't just all of a sudden, like that.
Oh gosh, no
process.
And you know what? It's still. I mean, he passed away in 2010, and you asked the question, what is it that made this one maybe different or more difficult? One of the biggest things is society, culture. It's the guilt, the blame, and the shame that you put on yourself because of how society views this. And looking at it, and especially with my type of personality, to think I could have done something different. I could have been a better wife. I could have been a better friend. I could have been a better partner. I could have been whatever. I could have kept a better house. I could have whatever it was. And what I came to realize is that I was living in this illusion of control of an outcome when it wasn't my decision or choice. And I started to recognize that's literally what most of us do in life. When we start beating ourselves up for the affair that happened, or the job that we got fired from, or whatever it is that happened that we didn't want to happen, we literally hang on to this illusion of control of an outcome when it wasn't our decision or choice. We could be the best spouse, we could be most faithful, we could be the best looking with the most money, with the best figure, whatever it is, and that person still cheats. We have this illusion of control. We can do everything right at our job, meet all of our KPIs, be a supportive leader, do all of those things, and still we lose our job. It was someone else's choice or decision. We did everything we could. And I think that challenge of letting go of that illusion of control of an outcome when there's someone else's decision involved was what literally got to the point to set me free. Not fully. I still go back there, right? His birthday was just 2 days ago. I still think about, oh my gosh. I mean, I think the most important thing is that these losses, of which it's more than death, right? You lose your job, you lose your health, you lose your sense of innocence, you lose your self-esteem, you lose a pet, you lose a significant relationship, you lose your financial stability, you lose your health. Loss is more than just death. When we start to recognize that, I believe, you don't heal from loss. That's an experience that you will always carry with you. You learn to process it in a way that you can get something valuable from it. Don't let it take everything valuable from you. Let it be the catalyst that you learn from. And I was at least had the previous losses, setbacks, and failures to fall back on to be able to say, okay, there's something good that can come of this. Even if you don't believe everything happens for a reason, I can prove to you that there's something positive that can come out of anything and everything. And one of the things that's come out of his death is literally this burning passion to help others through this process of loss, whatever it is, and grief from whatever. I mean, look at COVID. Look how much all of us lost. Look how many people passed away during COVID, and we didn't even get a chance to say goodbye. We didn't even get a chance to embrace them. We didn't get a chance to touch them. Or we lost our job, or anything else that people lost. We're all feeling these varying degrees of grief, and to be able to recognize it's not a one and done, and it's supposed to be something that you learn from that is valuable, right? There's something that's revealed to us about ourselves, and I think it helps us uncover what we were born with, because we were all born with. When I have people that say, "Oh my gosh, I'd love to be in your shoes. How did you do it? I wish I was resilient or courageous or whatever," right? They ask these questions, and I look right at them and I say, "I promise you, I mean it. I don't have anything more special than you do. You were born resilient. You were born courageous. You were born determined. You were born persevering, and I can prove it to you. If you learned how to walk, nobody did it for you. You tried to roll over how many times before you did it? Why? Because you were resilient. You kept going. You persevered. You had enough courage to try it. The same thing with crawling. The same thing with walking. We were born that way. The difference is it gets buried, Erica, with all of this stuff that happens, and then we feed all of these things into our brain about, well, I'm not good enough, I'm too old, I'm too young, I don't have enough going for me, I don't have the wrong background, nobody's going to want me, I'm not valuable enough. We fill in that not blank enough with whatever it is that's in our mind that we're not. And I'm here to say, yes, you are. You were born that way. The problem is we believe all that stuff going on in our head, and we don't stop to think about, wait a minute, what makes that true? Like me thinking my life is ruined, my life is over. Why did I think that? That was the future. I can say what happened to me was pretty crappy, pretty crummy, pretty awful, but what I can say is the future hasn't been determined yet. So maybe I do have something of value to offer. And the strength comes from the struggle. And we try to avoid it so much, even in our jobs, right? The struggles that we have in our jobs are really what create avenues and pathways for us to learn more, to be more valuable, to advance in our careers. But we avoid it. And that is so much that I learned in my career. And what I used in my career is what I learned from the struggles, the challenges, the setbacks. And so when I get asked, wow, how did you succeed in spite of everything you've been through? And I think, no, you don't get it. Those of us that are going through or have been through something, we're succeeding not in spite of those, it's because of those. It's because we recognized each time we got a little bit stronger. Each time we learned what we were made of. Each time we knew what we could encounter and not only endure, but we could come out stronger. We could move forward stronger with it. And at the same time with more empathy and compassion and understanding, because we've been there. And that makes us strong leaders. It makes us strong mothers. It makes us strong fathers. It makes us strong mentors. It makes us strong friends. It makes us strong inside so we can give that strength out to everybody else.
Absolutely. And because you could either go, the one of two ways of it's going to make myself stronger and I'm going to, pursue what I want to do or help other people or whatever it may be. Or I'm going to fall back and I'm going to say, well, this happened to me and this did to me. And now I'm, I can't do this, and this because of X, Y, and Z. And that's why there's this separation. But I love just you saying, one, we have this illusion of control. And I love that you said it's an illusion.
Yes.
Yeah. Of just like, no matter what it is. And just to take whatever situations that we're given, that have happened to us in life, and what are we going to do with it? We're going to use it as a hindrance, or are we going to move forward stronger, just like you say?
Yes, and I think so many of us, including me, I was asking the wrong question. I was asking why. That question has no answer. And to continue to ask a question that has no answer, you're always going to get whatever answer you make up, and it's never a good one. I should have been asking myself, what? The what question, okay, this happened. It did. It's not going to change. But what I choose to do with it is, what can I learn from this? What can I do with it? What can this do in my life for me? And that whole idea of, the question has no answer, we are programmed, our brains are programmed to think the worst. It's a protection mechanism. It helped us survive since the beginning of the species. But it doesn't serve us well in today's environment where we don't have the threats that we used to have in the environment. But our wiring hasn't changed, so we have to be really conscious of it. When we start asking what questions, those do have an answer. What can I do right now that will take me one step away from this gloom and doom? I don't know, maybe listen to a song that's upbeat. Maybe go for a walk. Maybe write this down. Maybe call a friend. Maybe get in a hot bath. What can I do right now that will help me feel better a little bit right now? I think it's important to understand, as you pointed out, that I just didn't go from, oh, I had this car accident, now I'm okay. Or my husband took his own life and now I'm okay. No, this is a continual process of these thoughts enter into your head, and then you start feeling guilty, and then you start feeling the blame and the shame. But once you understand, you don't have to live in that grief. You can live with what happened, but you don't have to live in the feelings that go with it. And that package deal is what I think our culture and our society have convinced us of, right? They're a package deal. Well, if you've had something happen in your life that you didn't want to happen, or happen to you that you didn't want to happen, and now I feel this unworthiness, unvalued, this crappy, my life is ruined, we've been convinced that's a package deal. Because this happened, this is how I'm always going to feel. And I see it out there everywhere, and it's not true. What happened is a point in time. It's a specific event. How you feel changes every minute. I mean, think about food that you used to like. Think about people that you used to be with. Think about boyfriends or girlfriends or spouses or partners or whatever your relationship is. Our feelings change all the time. Why we live in this mentality of it's a package deal. Once this terrible, awful little tragedy has happened, I'm going to have to live in this despair the rest of my life. And I'm here to say it's not true. No, I mean, why is it then, if we have to live in an emotion the rest of our life, why don't we live in happy? When we feel that elation or that joy, right? When we get that job that we wanted, we get that person to pay attention to us, we get that house or that car, or whatever accomplishment that we did, we climbed that mountain and we have that elation. If we get stuck in a feeling, like grief or an emotion, why don't we get stuck in happy? I mean, truly, so to be able to give people hope, right? That there is something beyond where you currently are. And no matter what age or what stage or what's happened in your life or what you've been through, I guarantee you, the more you've been through, the more value and the more worth you have and the more you have to offer. Use it. Share it.
You know, something you wrote in your book that right after Keith's death, I want to share this part just because I think when people listen, and like you said, you have people come up and they'll say, well, how did you get all this resilience, and how did you get all this grit, and how can you do all of this? And like there are moments where you weren't there, but you use that to push you forward. And you write, I stopped caring about my safety. I often left every door outside unlocked. Mm-hmm. You continue to say, I worked so hard to establish a successful career, but even that lost all of importance and meaning. You decide to retire, and then at some point you realize you were stuck, and then you needed to get unstuck and get out of that. And then that's when you move 5 hours away and you pursue an additional job. And it's like, yeah, you were there, but you use, like you said, those skills from your previous experiences to help you move forward. I think that's really important for people to hear and understand that, like, I mean, you've had a lot happen to you, and there's more that we haven't even talked about. And I know more that you didn't even share in your book. Which I do want to just mention, because I know our time is running out. Your book, which is Move Forward Stronger, I'm going to put that in the show notes. It is so helpful. I mean, like I told you, for me going through what I've been going through, and then just even, like, there's a section in it too where you're helping a friend who, I'm trying to remember correctly, but you're helping a friend of a friend who, like, what do I do when, I have no idea what to do? And you just list out all these things. And I was like, oh my gosh, she hits it dead on. And so I'm going to save a lot of other things for people to buy this book, because it's just so helpful. I mean, whether you're in the midst of the heart or you're not, it's just very practical. And your 5 frameworks, you talk about how it's not linear, because the grief stages, it doesn't have to be the denial and the whatever the rest is. And so I just want to encourage people to check out that book and to get it. And, if you're like right at the beginning of the grief, maybe not give it to somebody, or if you know somebody who's right at the beginning of their really hard of hearts. Because for me, I was like, I can't read it yet. And then eventually I was able to read it. But I just think it's so helpful. And just like your framework and the perspective is great. But I do want to just ask you one more question, which is a question that I ask everybody on my podcast. If you've already done a lot of this, but I want to know what else you could provide as well. If you could encourage one woman who feels blocked or limited to pursue a dream or a goal based on her age or life circumstance, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that you're only limited by what your own thoughts are telling you. And really get clear. What is it that you want? And what fear do you have? Because when you're stuck, many times it's based on fear. And fear can be a motivator, or fear can be a stuck where you are paralyzer. And identify what you're afraid of. And I really want to encourage you, whatever it is that's on your heart that you want to do, it's on your heart for a reason. And you are never too old. You are never too young. You are never too not enough to do it. Go for it. I never intended to write a book ever. And the feedback that I've gotten, all I wanted to know was that it would help one person. And if it helped one person on the journey, and I donate the proceeds to charity, I can tell you that when I finally got over myself because I was stuck and I had this self-doubt of, do I have anything of value to share? Would I be able to help anybody? And I think when you really look at it, it's only fear that's got you stuck. It's not anything else. I guarantee you, it's not money. It's not circumstance. It's this fear inside of you, because there are steps that you can take, even if they're small. Just start, and do not have to be perfect. I'm a perfectionist. I'm a recovering perfectionist. And what I've learned is people have valued it more when I've shown up real. When I did my TED Talk, I literally almost broke down twice in two parts. And we went with it. I mean, obviously it's live, right? But when you show up as yourself, it doesn't have to be perfect. And in fact, you reach more people then. So whatever it is that you want to do, that you think you're stuck, recognize it's fear. And what are you afraid of? If today was your last day, what would you want to make sure that you did? And if you start getting in that framework of mindset, it will make a big difference in what you can do and go forward. And quit thinking about what other people think. They really don't care as much as we're playing to in our head. They just don't. They don't even remember. I mean, some of the things in my book, I literally in my book, I talk about some people that made a difference in my life, or things that they said, things that they did. They were so impactful for me that I wrote them how many years later, they don't even remember it. So quit playing to the audience in your head and listen to your heart. Your heart's telling you what you need to do, and you know it.
Julia, thank you so much. Like I mentioned, I'm going to link your book in the show notes. I'll also link your TED Talk in the show notes as well. And if you want to share anywhere else people can find you, go ahead and do that right now.
Sure, absolutely. I'm on LinkedIn at Julia A. Nicholson. I'm also on Facebook at Julia Nicholson Presents, and Instagram at Julia Nicholson Presents. So, perfect. And I do speaking events, so if I show up anywhere near you, I'd love to meet you and just hear your story.
And we would love to have you.
Thank you.
Well, Julia, I appreciate it so much. I'll also put your website on in the show notes as well. And this was such a treat, such an honor. What a privilege to get to speak with you today. Thank you so much for sharing just a part of your story.
Thank you, Erica. I can't thank you enough for having me and for helping share with people. You are never too old to do what's in your heart. Go for it. Go for it. You'll find it's an incredible adventure and journey, and it'll be wilder than your dreams. But thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.